This video is brought to you by Sportland, quality, integrity, and tradition.
All right, over the holiday, it is Tuesday, December 27th today, I believe. And we had, over the holiday, beer walking go down. Now, the customer chose to have us come out on Monday, December 26th. But we had a skeleton crew working, literally one guy. And we were just putting fires out, kind of a thing. So he had to come out here on this beer walking, and he said it was low on refrigerant. So he topped off the charge, and today I'm back here, and we're gonna try to find this refrigerant leak. So, kind of looks like the TXV is not quite feeding evenly. Almost seems a little oily in here. Yeah, it seems very oily inside here, right in here. So we're gonna go up top, check out the condensing unit, and then do a proper leak search on this system. All right, well, this is my beer walking condensing unit right here. I get here this morning, and it is running and the sight glass is clear. So the sight glass is literally a window into the system. It's helping us to ensure that we have a solid column of liquid or 100% liquid going to our expansion valve. Now, it's not ideal that it's installed all the way up here, but sometimes you got to do that depending on the systems. So the actual system just satisfied, if you guys can see it there. So what I'm going to do is, before I apply any service gauges, we are going to head downstairs. We're going to make the system call, but I'm going to shut off the condensing unit on the roof. Now, in this particular situation, I understand the operation and how the system was set up. There is no communication from the condensing unit to the evaporator. So if I shut off the condensing unit, there's no valves or anything up here that will shut or close. And then if we get the evaporator to call, the system pressures are going to equalize, well, slowly equalize. When the solenoid valve, the liquid line solenoid valve downstairs opens up, then it will have better odds of doing a leak search without the low pressure that we have currently in the suction line. So let's turn this condensing unit off. It says breaker 7 and 9, end of rack. All right, got this guy shut off right here, beer walking. So now let's head downstairs and open up the door, get the box to warm up a bit. All right, I had the door propped open to the point that the thermostat came up above the set point temperature and turned on the solenoid valve, which is right here. So now the condensing unit is not running, so we have a path for the high side pressure, which isn't that high because it's just static, just sitting there, for the high side pressure to work its way through the valve and equalize out with the low side pressure. So at this point, we're gonna let it run for just a few more minutes, letting the pressures equalize out, and then we're gonna shut off the evaporator fan motor and start doing a leak search on this guy. All right, zero out my leak detector outside of the box. That way it can truly pick anything up that's going on. Okay, yeah. That lighted tip really does help. But remember, I stuck my finger in there and felt like it was oil. That's where the sensing bulb goes in. So yeah, there's a significant leak there. So we're gonna get some of that insulation pulled off. Let's try it up in here. See if it's coming through. It doesn't seem to be coming through. Oh yeah, it is coming through right in here. So, okay, well, we'll get that insulation pulled off so we can look back in there a little bit better. All right, so I've got some of the Viper Big Blue from Refrigeration Technologies, and we're gonna spray the braze joint liberally with a steady stream. Doesn't matter what falls on the ground here, but you always wanna be aware of your surroundings. You don't want to upset the customer. So we're just spraying steady stream up there, and then I'll spray a steady stream up here on the schrader. I'm hitting it back in there, and we're just gonna let it sit for a few minutes. I'm not seeing a bunch of oil right here, so I'm thinking maybe it's gonna be up in here. So I'll finish spraying down this whole coil in here. Might as well. I'm just spraying a steady stream. The Big Blue does a great job of letting you know where the leaks are. By spraying the steady stream, you're able to see micro clusters of bubbles. Really common spot is right here on the top of the TXV. on the top of the solenoid valve right in there. So we're gonna let that sit for a few minutes and then we'll come back and look for a leak. All right, we have been running for a little bit now, just sitting there letting it, and I am not seeing any bubbles, okay? With Big Blue, you'll know because you're looking for micro clusters of bubbles, and then if it's a big enough leak, you'll see big bubbles. So let's hop up top and get in here. Oh, I can already see it. Look at that, on the bottom of that schrader right there. I bet you if I pull that cap off, we have a bad schrader. Let's look at the rest of the coil because I did spray soap bubbles all over it. Not seeing any at the bottom of the the top of the TXV distributor right there. Nothing. Everything looks good. All right. Don't see anything. So let me pull that cap off that superheat access port right there. Let's see. Oh yeah. Ooh. That guy's like pressurized. What the heck is that about? That's not good. That's like a complete failure of a schrader. I gotta go up to the system up top and pump it down to a slightly positive pressure. We'll pull that out and put a new schrader in it. I bet you the schrader just completely got stuck. All right, before I turn the system on and apply service gauges, the one place that I wanted to look really quickly was on the service caps up here. So it helps that we have the lighted tip on this leak detector. Nothing. You typically would see oil accumulation and a lot of dust and dirt if there was a leak there. But we're just looking on the basic service caps. Because what happens is, sometimes there could be small leaks at these schrader cores right here, right? Or the cap could have a bad gasket. And when you take your caps off and put your gauges on it, you fix the leak by putting your gauges on it. So then you'll search the whole system and you can't find a leak. So you always want to check your caps if you think or you suspect the system has a leak before you take them off. I'm not seeing anything, so we're going to put these guys on now. When applying service gauges, you always want to purge your hoses. So once you put them on, you then want to purge to make sure you get all the air out of the system. That one's good. Now let's do this one. Okay. And if we look here, we have 81 PSI on my low side and 155 on my high side. Now normally, during normal operation, your suction pressure is going to be in the 50s-ish, dependent on the temperature of the box or something like that, maybe the high 40s. But it's important to understand, you know, like I said, I'm reiterating that you need suction pressure when you're doing a leak search. You don't want the system to be satisfied and pumped down because your suction pressure might be as low as 5 PSI, and oftentimes it can be hard to find a small leak that way. So that's why I equalized out the pressures. Now, we're going to go ahead and take the cap off this king valve. This is on the outlet of the liquid line receiver, and we are going to front seat the ball valve so that way we can pump the system down. So we take a refrigeration service wrench right here, and we're just going to front seat the valve to where we're completely shutting off the refrigerant flow. And what's going to happen is the system is going to try to pump down. Well, it's going to try to run, but the gas has nowhere to go because I shut off the outlet flow of the receiver. So therefore, the system pressures are going to keep running and running and running until the system shuts off on low pressure. Also, that compressor sounds a wee bit rough, but we should be watching our pressures right here. And remember, that refrigerant is pumping through the discharge line, running through the condenser, out of the condenser, into the liquid drain, into the receiver, but it can't leave the receiver. But yet the compressor keeps pumping because it's going to do so as it's backing the refrigerant up in the receiver and storing it in the condenser for pump down. Now, we're not looking for negative pressures here. I'm just looking to get down to about 5 or 10 PSI so I can go down and change that schrader under pressure. I want to do a hot swap if possible, because if I open the system up and completely pump it down and open it to atmosphere, I'm going to have to change the liquid line filter dryer. And if I can get away with it, I don't want to have to do that. So we're just waiting for it to pump down. Notice that high side pressure came up, but then it's starting to come down. That's actually a good sign. Whenever you're pumping a system down, you always need to be monitoring high side pressure, because you do not want the high side pressure to be getting higher and higher and higher to the point that it hurts the compressor. And that can happen if the system is overcharged. So let's see where it naturally pumps down at. We're almost there. I'm actually just going to shut it off right there. Now, sometimes the suction pressure might rise a little bit. It's okay. We'll let it kind of, as the refrigerant's boiling out of the oil in the crankcase of the compressor, and there's still maybe some with a little bit of oil down in the evaporator, it's natural to see it rise. We may need to turn it on again for a couple seconds to get the pressures down a little bit. Turned it back on for another couple seconds. It's about 11 psi, 10 psi. Oh, there we go. We satisfied on low pressure. So I'm just going to shut off the breaker, and then we're going to head downstairs. I'll get a new schrader, and we'll swap that guy out really quick. We'll try. It's kind of tight up here. All right. I'm going to pull out the solenoid valve coil so that way I can get in there a little bit better. If I can get it out, there we go. Important not to energize the solenoid valve with that coil missing. Let's go ahead and pop this guy. See how bad this leak is. Oh, wow. Yeah, the schrader's just completely bad. I don't think the schrader core removal tool is going to do this job. We might not even, that schrader might even be stuck in there. We'll have to see. I need to grab a different tool. Tricky, tricky. Yeah, that's not good. Man, I'm gonna have to like move the side panel. The side panel is really in my way too. Maybe just the drain pan. If I take the drain pan out, then I could bend the panel out of my way. Whew, it is tight up in here. Okay, now the system's still under pressure, so I'm keeping it capped so I can just throw a new schrader in there and hope that it'll seal it up. Try not to blow it out. There we go. Perfect. Good gosh. That was a chore to go upstairs and make sure we're still under positive pressure. Got a new cap for it. There we go. And I got some new caps for on the roof, so I'm going to assemble this and then we'll get back up there, make sure we're still in positive pressure, and hopefully start it back up. If it's not in positive pressure, it's not a big deal. We just pull a vacuum and change the dryer. I was just trying to be lazy. Come back up onto the roof. We're still at 5 psi on the low side, so we never pulled atmosphere into the system. I would also make an argument for the people that want to say I'm wrong. Maybe I am, but I'll make an argument that if we were to pump the system down and pull a vacuum, that we would lose more refrigerant than a simple hot swap like I just did, where you lose minimal amounts of refrigerant compared to what an evacuation is going to do, completely dehydrating the oil of refrigerant, or at least attempting to. But it's a conversation for another day. So at this point, because we're still in positive pressure, we're going to go ahead and turn the breaker off. Okay, it's still off right there. And we're gonna open up the king valve, let the system pressures kind of equalize out so we can go do another leak search and make sure that there's no more leaks down there. So now You'll see the suction pressure starting to come up because I'm naturally letting the static pressure push it through the system, meaning that there's not a compressor that's accelerating the refrigerant movement. We're just having natural static pressure flow, meaning that it's just the pressure in the system and it's just equalizing out. High side has 149 and we're open on the solenoid valve, so naturally we're going to try to equalize those pressures out of the system. Okay, came down here, sprayed a little more Big Blue, and we are not seeing the refrigerant leak that we were seeing earlier. So all is good with that. Now I need to get back here and put that insulation back on that I pulled off, and I'll get some foam tape and we'll clean it up. We are ready to turn this guy back on. Okay, so we're gonna let it run for a few minutes, make sure that the sight glass stays clear. As long as the sight glass stays clear, there's no head pressure control valve or anything, so we don't need extra refrigerant, no winter charge. So we'll just watch it come down in temp. All right, it's been running for a bit. We're stabilizing out, about 19 degrees saturation. It's probably in the 30s in there right now. TXV, actually, no, it's probably in the mid 40s, but the TXV is probably overfeeding just a little bit because it's coming down in temp. Saturation temperatures, nothing's really too concerning to me. Sight glass is clear, so I don't think I need to add any refrigerant. All is well. We're gonna wrap this one up, make sure the time clock is correct. It's 9:54. It was correct when I got here. I've just had it shut off for a while. Not very heavy, but we got to get this swamp cooler up onto the roof, so we're going to use our mechanical lift. It's just big is all that it is, so we're just going to use the lift to get it up, and then we'll carry it across the roof once we get it up there. All right, we've got it on there, so I'm going to head up top, have someone lift it up, and then I'll just slide it onto the roof edge, and then we'll carry it across the roof once we get it up there. Just slide it right onto the roof, easy peasy. All right, this is the cooler in the rack. This is just to cool the rack. So I took the panels off temporarily because the cooler had bad bearings. New one's up here. We're gonna slowly start disassembling this one. It doesn't look like it's a big deal. It looks like maybe bolt right there and bolt on the other side. So no biggie, we gotta get some electrical disconnected. The cooler had these two bolts holding it in from the top, and then we have tech screws just temporarily holding it right now. So we're loose. We're disconnected electrically and everything, so we're just going to drop this guy down, then try to figure out how to get the new one up. Whenever we do these lift jobs, it's always a 2-man operation, if not a 3-man operation, depending on how difficult it is. One person is always manning the lift. Even though it has a brake on the winch, we still don't trust it. We've always got a hand on it. And then this one, this is light, so I'm able to slide it on, but normally we'll have 3 people here. We try to be as safe as possible. All right, it doesn't take much. We've got big bolts on the top holding this guy up. I ended up putting an extra screw in the top right here just to hold it. And then we ran another screw down here. It doesn't need any more than that. That's good. So then we're just gonna work on getting water lines over to it. This is gonna be polishing a turd. It's not gonna be anything crazy. So we'll get a water line ran over. I may redo that. And then we gotta worry about moving stuff because this guy right here was originally mounted on that end, and we're gonna move it to this end right here. So I gotta drill some holes. I have my electrical hole from the last one, knockout right there. These little bits for electrical are awesome. If you've never seen these before, it has a step on it, and it's made for drilling into electrical panels because it doesn't let you go too far. Once you drill through, it stops you right there. So they're really nice to have in your van, and they do really well. It's not gonna do a whole lot. We went ahead and put a filter on it. These floats are junk. I'm gonna use the one that came with the cooler for now. We'll eventually have to change it to the adjustable ones, but you gotta bend them to set them. So basically, we're just filling it up to make sure, and it looks like maybe we need to tighten this on just a little bit more because it's kind of dripping right there. But that's okay, we'll tighten that on, and then everything here looks good, So we're just about ready to start this up. We got to oil these bearings. We're probably going to do lunch and then we'll oil them and start it up. Got the temperature controller installed up there, set for about 80 degrees. Capillary pulled out here with the rubber O-ring. Same on this right here. So. All right, we are put back on. We did have to adjust it because it was over amping slightly. We're allowed to run 10.8 amps. And right now, well, that's with the water pump running. We're running 11.6, but it was running 10.5 without the water pump. So that's fine. because we were at 10.5 and we're rated for 10.8. So everything's good there. Water float's set, all is well. We're putting the covers on. We have it set for 70 degrees. So anything below 70 degrees, the water pump shuts off and it just draws outside air at 70 degrees into here to push all the heat out. And again, this will have all the panels on it when we're all done. So this guy's good to go. Bearings are all oiled up and everything's cool. All the condensing units are running. This one's not in use anymore. All of them have clear sight glasses. That's this guy right here. That indicates that we have a full column of liquid going to the expansion valve. That's good. Also checked all the defrost timers. The times are all set correct. Everything's good on that. So we're gonna start putting all the panels on. All right, this janky rack is put back together. Now, I have plans to eventually eliminate this. We are currently in the process, or they are in the process of doing a remodel, and they're going to be getting rid of the bar cooler condensing unit right here. It says bar coolers. They're going to be getting rid of both of these cold rail condensers right there. So all that's going to be left in this guy is a walk-in cooler, beer walk-in, and walk-in freezer. When that happens, I'm likely going to talk them into slowly starting to change out the walk-in condensing units. And I think we're gonna pull them out of this rack, okay? So this is just a temporary replacement of a evaporative cooler. The way that it works is you have all the heat. It has relief vents right there and right there. It allows it to mix, absorb the heat, and blow it out. You can see all the line sets come out right here. It's been like this forever. So eventually I'd like to start deleting these. And what I'd like to do is set up some 4x4s right here with 3 condensing units and walk-in cooler, freezer, and beer walk-in. And then eventually we can pull this rack completely out of the picture and delete it, because it's really useless. But anyways, for now, this is what we have to do.
So I mashed together 2 different calls here, but the first one obviously was the beer walk-in. I went out after the on-call tech had put refrigerant in the system to go find the refrigerant leak, and then obviously found the leak on the schrader. Now, it's funny because like I thought about it and it's like it actually was the schrader on this one, right? But there's a common thread that when people go out to do leak searches, you know, and they have a hard time finding it, they always blame it on the schraders. It's not very often that it's actually the schrader that's the cause, especially of large leaks, okay? But in this case, it was. Now, I went ahead and replaced the schrader. I did a hot swap. I pumped it down to a low level pressure and then, you know, changed it obviously like you guys saw. You got to be careful because especially when I had the system pressures equalized, if I'd have tried to pull that schrader out or even the cap off, I think it would have been hard to get the cap back on because it would have been a pretty big pressure coming out of it. So obviously using your senses when you're doing things, right? So as I'm unscrewing the cap and it starts building, or the pressure starts rushing out and it's getting stronger and stronger, it's like, hey, stop what you're doing, go pump the system down. It's not just as easy as I thought it was going to be, right? Obviously, if you do pump the system down and pull atmosphere into the system, right, you want to make sure that you do a proper evacuation and you change the liquid line filter dryer always, okay? Anytime you open up a system, it's a proper practice to change the liquid line filter dryer because especially in this system that has polyester oil, there's the potential of that oil absorbing moisture, and then once moisture actually gets into polyester oil, it's almost impossible to truly dehydrate that oil. It's really difficult. You can do your best, but it's never going to be absolutely perfect. So anyways, we went ahead and took care of that, got the system back up and running. All was well, and then actually a couple months later had another service call, and it actually wasn't on the beer walk-in, it was on something else that was going off on high head pressure. And what had happened was the rack, the bearing had failed and on the blower shaft basically, and that swamp cooler was just a trash swamp cooler. Those things with as much as it runs, or swamp cooler or evaporative cooler, we basically change those every 2 years, and you know it is what it is. It's almost like a consumable. So I went ahead and took all the panels off the rack on that service call and then just let it breathe the outside air, and then obviously replace the swamp cooler, put it back on. So I talked about my grand plan. Customer's going through a remodel right now, so eventually we're going to pull everything out of that rack and basically make it obsolete. That is the plan eventually. So we'll get some proper condensing units up there and build a, mini rack next to it on maybe some 2x6s or something, or 4x6s, and and then have a permanent place for all the refrigeration equipment. So the reason why they have that rack is because all those condensing units in there are really meant to be indoor condensing units. They're not weatherproof. They don't have weather covers and dog houses on them. Also, though, they're sized accordingly to the temperature that the rack maintains. Where that location is at, they regularly get 115 to 120 degrees ambient for a couple months of the year. So you have to size your equipment for that, right? To save money, though, and to save energy, oftentimes, if you put it in an enclosure like that and then you put an evaporative cooler on it, you could reduce the size of the equipment based off of the fact that it's not really ever going to see 115 to 120 degree ambient. If we put that evaporative cooler on there, we can probably size that equipment for like an 80 to 85 degree ambient, because that's what it'll typically maintain inside that rack with that evaporative cooler blown across it. Now, of course, there can be an argument to be made that it's not as energy efficient, but this is a very, very old legacy system. And obviously, like I said, we have plans on eliminating it completely eventually. But for now, we had to get it back up and running. So we also put the swamp cooler on there and all as well. Now, that location, we actually have a lot more work coming there too. We're going to be changing a package unit, changing another evaporative cooler on the roof. We got a lot of stuff going on right now. So let's just hope we get to it in a timely fashion. All right. I really do appreciate you guys making it to the end of the video. Again, it's kind of crazy that you guys like to listen to the ramblings of my brain as I, work my way through these service calls, but it's really cool. It's neat to see all the feedback. I do appreciate it all. So thank you guys very much. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Definitely helps it out. Follow me on all the different social media platforms under HVACR videos. A couple different ways if you guys are interested in doing so to help support the channel. The easiest of being just simply watching the videos. That's the easiest way to support the channel. Watch the videos from beginning to end. A couple other ways you can support the channel monetarily through like monthly commitments where you donate monthly, and it charges your credit card through PayPal, Patreon, YouTube channel memberships. Also, if you're interested in doing so, and you don't have to do any of that stuff, I do appreciate the people that do, but again, I'm going to continue to make these videos regardless, so it's really cool. But also, TrueTechTools.com, I have an affiliate program set up with them, so if you use my offer code BIGPICTURE on majority of the items on their website, if you're interested in purchasing any tools, just check it out. Use my offer code BIGPICTURE, one word. You'll get an 8% discount on majority of the items on their website. Now, there's a few things it doesn't apply to, but when you do use my discount, I get a small commission from that. So you get tools at a great price. I get a small commission. It's kind of a win-win thing. So that's another great way. But again, I really do appreciate you. Thank you so very much, and we will catch you on the next one, okay?